The first rule of happiness is low expectations. Risk is what's left over after you think you've thought of everything. We are very good at predicting the future, except for the surprises, which tend to be all that matter. Change captures our attention because it's surprising and exciting. Crazy doesn't mean broken. Crazy is normal. Beyond the point of crazy is normal. Stress focuses your attention in ways that good times can't. Good news comes from compounding, which always takes time, but bad news comes from a loss in confidence or a catastrophic error that can occur in a blink of an eye. Progress requires optimism and pessimism to coexist. People don't want accuracy, they want certainty. Nothing is more persuasive than what you've experienced firsthand. The grass is always greener on the side that's fertilized with bullshit. When the incentives are crazy, the behavior is crazy. Most competitive advantages eventually die. It always feels like we're falling behind, and it's easy to discount the potential of new technology. Saying, "I'm in it for the long run," is a bit like standing at the base of Mount Everest, pointing to the top, and saying, "That's where I'm heading." People gauge their well-being relative to those around them. The biggest risk is always what no one sees coming. History never repeats itself. Man always does. The world is driven by forces that cannot be measured. Incentives are one of the most powerful forces in the world. Overconfidence and short-sightedness remind us of people's behavior today. The overwhelming attention we pay to getting more and the negligible attention to managing expectations makes little sense. If you know where we've been, you realize we have no idea where we're going. Expectations rise as fast as circumstances improve, smothering progress. Every big story could have turned out differently if a few little puffs of nothingness went the other direction. The most important lessons from human behavior are timeless. Every event creates its own offspring, which impacts the world in its own special way. Success in life is about knowing what never changes. Your happiness completely relies on expectations. The same personality traits that push people to the top also increase the odds of pushing them over the edge. When people see progress, they often set new, higher goals, rather than stopping to celebrate. In a probabilistic world, certainty is rare, and outcomes are not guaranteed. The past is full of examples of people underestimating rare events. Incentives explain almost everything in life. The idea that what you don't see might refute everything you believe just doesn't occur to us. Most of the time, when someone's caught unprepared, it's not because they didn't plan, but because they didn't see it coming. The absurdity of past connections should humble your confidence in predicting future ones. In every imaginable version of life, universal truths remain. Building resilience requires acknowledging that surprises will happen. Managing expectations with as much effort as circumstances leads to lasting happiness. Good decisions compound over time, much like investments. Money buys happiness only when it aligns with your values. Few people actually use probability when making real-world decisions. People compare themselves to others through a curated highlight reel. It's impossible to plan for what you can't imagine. Forecasting events is hard because it's easy to skip the question, "And then what?" No conqueror gets what they wish and then retires. Wealth and happiness form a two-part equation: what you have and what you expect. A tiny accident can change the world in unimaginable ways. The best investment is preparation, not prediction. Good decisions require balancing optimism and pessimism, acknowledging the coexistence of hope and caution. Every historical event has parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, and cousins. Ignoring their lineage muddies our understanding. The glorious lifestyles of the few often inflate the aspirations of the many, creating discontent. Living through history blinds us to its inevitabilities. Hindsight creates a false sense of clarity. The fragility of the world lies in how much of it hangs by a thread, often unnoticed until it snaps. People adapt so quickly to improvements that what once felt extraordinary soon becomes mundane. The ability to delay gratification is a superpower in a world obsessed with immediate rewards. Resilience comes not from avoiding failure, but from learning to endure and grow through it. True wisdom is in knowing that predictions are rarely about accuracy, but about managing uncertainty. Even when times change, human behavior, fueled by greed, fear, envy, and hope, remains constant. Every risk worth taking involves stepping into the unknown, where outcomes are unpredictable. Low expectations are not a sign of weakness, but a strategy for appreciating life's simple joys. The stories we tell ourselves about success and failure often matter more than the events themselves. Progress often feels unsatisfying because our expectations inflate faster than our achievements. People who think differently challenge us not only with their brilliance, but also with their quirks. Human progress is built on the foundation of overcoming risks we once thought insurmountable. Success requires clarity on what truly matters, not chasing every fleeting opportunity. The greatest surprises come from what we don't see coming, not from what we fail to prepare for. Our lives are shaped by compounding forces, small, consistent actions that grow exponentially over time. Planning for risks we can't predict is not just prudent, it's essential in a world driven by uncertainty. Social comparison is the thief of joy, but it is also a driver of progress when channeled wisely. Understanding the timeless lessons of human behavior allows us to navigate change with greater ease. People crave certainty so much that they'll often settle for the illusion of it over the discomfort of doubt. Success and failure often stem from the same traits, magnified by circumstances beyond our control. Life's most enduring lessons come not from what changes, but from what remains constant. Predicting the future is futile, but understanding human nature gives you an edge in preparing for it. Envy drives progress, but unchecked, it can also be the source of our greatest dissatisfaction. The gap between what we expect and what we experience defines much of our happiness. In a large enough world, rare events happen all the time. What's extraordinary for one is inevitable for another. The stories of resilience, persistence, and luck shape not only our history, but our beliefs about what's possible. Much of what's important in life doesn't come with a price tag, but it's invaluable to our happiness. Every decision we make is influenced by incentives, whether we're aware of them or not. Progress is not linear. It's a mix of small steps forward, moments of stagnation, and occasional leaps. People often prepare for the risks they can imagine, but are blindsided by the ones they cannot. Social pressure to keep up with others creates an endless cycle of chasing more without appreciating enough. The complexity of human behavior lies in its consistency over time, even as the world around us evolves. Preparing for the inevitable surprises of life requires flexibility, patience, and a long-term view. Compounding is a force that works for us or against us, depending on our choices and discipline. Real growth comes not from avoiding discomfort, but from embracing it as part of the process. Expectations shape our reality. Lower them, and you'll often find more joy in what you already have. People's inability to think probabilistically leads them to overestimate certainty and underestimate risk. Long-term success requires adapting to change while staying grounded in timeless principles. Our attachment to tribal identities influences our decisions far more than we realize. Success, failure, joy, and sorrow often stem from the same unpredictable twists of fate. The biggest stories in history often hinge on the smallest, seemingly insignificant moments. Being aware of the incentives driving others, and yourself, is key to understanding behavior. The timeless struggle is not between progress and stagnation, but between inflated expectations and reality. The stories of what could have been often shape our understanding of what is more than we admit. There's no such thing as a self-made person. Our paths are shaped by luck, timing, and the support of others. Risk and opportunity are two sides of the same coin. You can't have one without the other. History's most enduring lesson is that while everything changes, some truths never do. Small, consistent improvements often outweigh big, sporadic efforts in the long run. The most enduring truths are those that stand the test of time and circumstance. People underestimate how much of life's outcomes are driven by randomness. Ambition without gratitude can lead to a perpetual sense of inadequacy. The world often rewards boldness, but punishes recklessness, a distinction hard to master. Certainty is often an illusion. The real art lies in navigating probabilities with wisdom. The strongest relationships are built on shared struggles, not shared successes. Our natural tendency to seek patterns can blind us to the randomness that shapes much of life. People don't like to admit how much of their success is owed to timing and luck. Adapting to change doesn't mean abandoning your principles. It means applying them differently. True resilience is the ability to keep going, not because it's easy, but because it's worthwhile. The balance between greed and fear drives most of the decisions we make. Those who stand out for their brilliance often do so because they refuse to conform. The compounding effect of small decisions often matters more than the big dramatic moments. Foresight is often just hindsight applied to a different context. Many of the world's greatest innovations came not from perfection, but from persistence. The stories we believe about ourselves and others often matter more than the facts. The allure of shortcuts often blinds us to the value of long-term effort. People rarely notice progress because it's often slow, subtle, and non-linear. Jealousy isn't about wanting what others have, it's about feeling you deserve it more. Leaders who fail often do so because they stop questioning their own assumptions. The lessons of history are often ignored, not because they're unclear, but because they're inconvenient. Being content doesn't mean settling. It means appreciating what you have while working for more. The human mind is wired for stories, which is why we often value narrative over nuance. Understanding incentives helps us predict behavior more reliably than judging intentions. The future is always uncertain, but our responses to it can follow timeless patterns. The hardest decisions often require us to choose between short-term comfort and long-term growth. People often overestimate what they can accomplish in a year and underestimate what they can do in a decade. The tendency to repeat past mistakes is one of humanity's most enduring traits. Growth requires discomfort, but the rewards often far outweigh the sacrifices. Humility is understanding that your view of the world is always incomplete. Luck plays a bigger role in success than most people are comfortable admitting. The human condition is a constant tension between wanting more and needing less. Small, consistent efforts often lead to results far greater than grand, sporadic efforts. The hardest decisions are the ones where the best choice is unclear until much later. People's opinions are shaped more by their experiences than by objective truths. Human progress is often the result of solving yesterday's problems with today's tools. Admitting what you don't know is the starting point for real learning. Every financial decision we make reflects our unique experiences and fears. The best strategies are boring, consistent, and focused on the long term. Compounding doesn't just apply to money, it applies to skills, relationships, and knowledge. The decisions that matter most often don't feel urgent at the time they're made. Success is about making fewer mistakes, not about avoiding all of them. Ambition without purpose often leads to exhaustion rather than fulfillment. Trust takes years to build, seconds to break, and a lifetime to repair. Good advice often feels counterintuitive because it challenges our instincts. History's lessons are most powerful when we recognize their patterns in our own lives. Most risks are manageable if you approach them with patience and preparation. True wealth is the ability to live according to your values, not someone else's. Embracing uncertainty is the first step to building resilience in a chaotic world. People often confuse being busy with being productive. The pursuit of happiness often leads us back to the simple things we've overlooked. Great opportunities often come disguised as hard work and uncertainty. The stories we believe about ourselves shape our decisions more than the facts. Time spent worrying about things outside your control is time wasted. Genuine curiosity is one of the most underrated paths to growth. Progress isn't always visible in the short term, but it compounds over time. People often regret not taking chances more than failing at what they tried. Long-term thinking is a superpower in a world obsessed with immediate results.